It's just being manipulated by the drug. So the problem is not fixed. And this is why diabetes unmanaged will progress and meaning unmanaged, like you're still eating like shit, drinking, disgusting drinks with high amounts of sugar, drinking alcohol, etc. You're going to continue to, the disease state will progress regardless of the drug. And that's why you usually have to change your drug, or you have to go on a higher dose, or you end up being on injectables, et cetera, et cetera.
Welcome to Integrative You Radio, hosted by Dr. Nick Carruthers and yours truly, Dr. Nicole Rivera. This is the place where you become limitless. We are covering the latest and greatest topics, of course, in a disruptive fashion around integrative medicine, mental health, and human behavior. We are also covering how those topics affect the human and family dynamics. We will be sprinkling in some truth bombs for our healthpreneurs so they can join us in our mission to evolve healthcare. If you are health curious and growth focused, you are in the right place. But buckle up, because this is real, this is raw, and this is disruptive. This is Integrative You Radio.
What is up, my friends? Welcome back to another episode of Integrative You Radio. So I was talking to a friend. She was actually asking me a few questions in relation to health. And this was about a family member that she's concerned about. And as I was talking to her, I realized I don't think that I've really talked about this in depth on the podcast or in any of the webinars. I think I've talked about these things in isolation, but I feel compelled to talk about it now, primarily because it is actually more common now than it ever has been. And I'm saying this based off of the clients that I'm working with, and I'm also basing this off of the clients or the patients of colleagues that I work with and I coach. And so one of the things that, we're seeing all over the internet, social media, et cetera, is Ozempic, and it's the weight loss drug and all this stuff. And really what Ozempic is it's a very specific GLP drug that is used for blood sugar regulation. So, traditionally or conventionally, it's used for diabetics. And then the other really common drug is metformin. And there are many others, but metformin has definitely been around for a really long time, and it is the most commonly prescribed. But the thing is, nowadays, is diabetes, pre-diabetes is really, really freaking common, but blood sugar dysregulation is more than common. Like, it is, most people, at least I'm going to say in the US, I live in Italy now, and I have actually seen it quite a bit in Italy as well, is major blood sugar dysregulation. And let me preface with this. I know you guys have probably heard me say this if you've been an avid listener to the podcast or webinars and social media and all of that. But there is a major blood sugar crisis. I've done a podcast specifically about my city people, my New Yorkers, my corporate New Yorkers, and the blood sugar crisis that I see 100% of the time with people that have worked in these high demand corporate jobs or entrepreneurial jobs, especially living in a fast paced place like New York, even northern New Jersey. So we have that. So we have, let's put our busy ass entrepreneurs, serial entrepreneurs, high demand corporate executives, or even if you're an intern at a big ass company, fashion, etc., you're still dealing with the same thing. Because what's happening is that people, and this is also happening with moms, let's be real, because just hear me out. You get up in the morning, you have your coffee, you don't eat anything. Some of you are waking up like, one, I'm not hungry. I can't eat more than a bite of something. And then some of you are like, I will fucking throw up with the idea of eating food, like especially something like protein or eggs in the morning. Ooh. So you get up, you have your coffee. Maybe you have a matcha. I don't know. But chances are, if you're having a coffee, you're having a matcha, It's got sugar in it because if you're going with your milk alternatives, there's a shit ton of sugar in those. There's a shit ton of sugar in milk if you're going straight up milk. Chances are you're putting maybe a little sweetener in to flavor up your coffee. So you have that and then you can go a few hours. Some people go till 10, 11. Some people don't eat anything until 2 in the afternoon. And now you are intuitively freaking starving. If you're a mom, you might be grabbing random shit in the house, snacks you gave your kids. You might, oh, I'm going to grab a little banana. That's my healthy day. Or I'm going to take a couple bites of this sandwich that I made. And then if you're in the work environment, you're so hungry that your body intuitively is craving something that's going to raise the blood sugar quickly. So you might go, let's say you go healthy route. You go, oh, I'm going to grab a sushi roll. I'm going to grab a smoothie bowl. What's in those? Sugar. It's all sugar. Rice is sugar. You got your smoothie bowl, which is fruit with sugar, sugar. And then you're having a day, so you're like, no, screw it. Pizza, I want a burger, I want a panini, whatever. Now you got your sugar and your fat. So you raise your blood sugar because it's so bottomed out at this point. You spike it, and guess what? It falls. And now midday, you're like, oh, I'm kind of tired. Maybe I should have another coffee. For those of you who don't drink coffee, maybe you're grabbing a soda. Maybe you're heading to the vending machine, grabbing some chocolate for that caffeine fix, a little sweet fix. Now dinner's rolling around, dinner time. You're so hungry again. You're eating some cheese and crackers. You're eating some popcorn. You're eating something while you're making dinner. You have dinner, and a couple minutes, hours later, you are like, "Where's the ice cream? I need a little something sweet. I want a little chocolate before bed." This is the typical blood sugar crisis. I don't care what your labs look like. I don't care if your glucose is fine. I don't care if your hemoglobin A1C is fine. You have blood sugar issues. That's what happens, and then your labs start to change. So this is so many people. And like I said, super common in busy professionals, super common in busy parents, super common in general. One of the things about the Italians here is that there are some Italians that eat a lot of sugar because there's friggin' amazing pastries and everything here. But one of the reasons why diabetes is not as common is because of the pace of life. So, people get up in the morning and they do have a little something sweet with an espresso. It is not common to have a sugary, there's no Starbucks, that's not a thing. So so they might be having a pastry, but they're having just an espresso. They're not having what is it, 80 grams of sugar in a frappe latte, blah, blah, blah. So people will say, oh my gosh, I could never eat a pastry in the morning. I'd gain so much weight, as they're literally standing there with their vanilla latte in their hand, which has the same amount of sugar, probably more sugar, honestly, than the pastry that the Italian eats here. And Italians, everything closes at lunchtime. So they all have lunch. They sit down, they have lunch. It's not rushed. And that's the difference. There is a big, big difference in the pace of life, the pace of eating. So anyway, so I'm prefacing here with the blood sugar crisis that many of us are dealing with. Then, we have people that are actually getting their labs done and they have hemoglobin A1C that's elevated, they have glucose that's elevated, and they're being told you're pre-diabetic or you're diabetic. And so at some point, they say, okay, your levels are not too bad, just be careful, don't do too much sweets. And then it gets to a point that if the numbers are elevated for an extended amount of time, they're going to recommend something like a metformin, maybe an Ozempic nowadays, because it's the new trending drug. Um, Guys, by the way, go look up the side effects of Ozempic. It is fucking wild. One of the most common side effects is thyroid tumors, gut issues, autoimmune gut issues, Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, kidney failure. Like it is wild. Bone density issues, parathyroid failure. It's like, yeah. Mhm. All for the sake of weight loss. So one of the things that I was talking about with my friend is that if you have blood sugar issues for long enough, and maybe you just resonate with what I just described. Oh my gosh, I can't eat anything in the morning. I will throw up, nauseous in the morning. Absolutely not. That is a sign that you have blood sugar dysregulation. So maybe your glucose and your hemoglobin A1C levels look fine, but chances are, if I ran your pancreatic enzymes like amylase and lipase, and I also looked at your insulin regulation, it would show me that you actually have pancreatic issues and blood sugar issues. So there's way more markers that need to be looked at in order to have a full spectrum idea of what is going on with the pancreas as well as blood sugar regulation. There are also people that I've worked with in the past that were having fainting spells, losing their vision randomly. They had no correlation. Sometimes it would be after a run, sometimes it would be after around lunchtime. And it turned out they were type 1 diabetic, and it was not since childhood. It was something that was developed later down the line. So that is also something that can happen. They tell you, oh, you're either born with it or you're not. That's not how it works. Because if you have an autoimmune attack that's damaging the pancreas, it's probably because there are infections in your pancreas that shouldn't be there. One of the most common that we see is liver flukes, parasites in the liver that move into the bile ducts, which then moves into the pancreatic duct. And now you have parasites in your pancreas. Interesting. So, if you have this blood sugar dysregulation, or you have actually had abnormal lab markers coming back saying you're pre-diabetic or diabetic, it's called blood sugar. That means you have too much sugar floating around in your blood. So, for those of you that have ever used sugar in the kitchen, what happens when you heat up sugar? It becomes sticky. What do you think happens when you have a boatload of sugar floating around in your bloodstream? It becomes sticky. So, a couple things happen here is one, you get a stickiness that starts to clump your red blood cells. If you get a clumping of red blood cells, what is that technically? It's called a blood clot. The other thing is that if you have thick blood, sticky blood, blood clots, maybe all of the above, because your blood sugar is so jacked up, then you're going to have blood that cannot flow properly. So now you're having issues with how well your blood is flowing out away from the heart. So, an example, a visual, blood should flow like a river, flow very freely. But it can start to flow like oil, and then it can become like sludge, especially if we have clots that are creating dams, obstacles. And so, one of the two or four of the most distal parts of your body, farthest from your heart, is your hands and your feet. So what happens? Oh, you get Raynaud's. You have horrible circulation to your hands and feet. I'm not saying anybody who has Raynaud's has blood clots. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that there's a reason why your blood cannot flow to your hands and feet. If you've had frostbite, that's a different story. But if you've never had frostbite, then we have to think about what's the problem? Why is it so difficult for blood to get all the way to your hands and feet? Is it because you've had frostbite? Is it because you have had a shit ton of injuries to your wrists and your ankles? Maybe because you were a gymnast and you have tons of scar tissue? Yes, very probable. But if you haven't had any of those things, what's going on with your circulation? Is there a weakness in the heart that's not allowing the heart to pump properly to get the blood out? Is it because your blood is thicker than it's supposed to be because there is sticky glucose sugar molecules floating around? Is it also difficult because there are clots that are located in different parts of the body, again, because of the stickiness that's happening? And guys, by the way, if you have glucose floating around and it's damaging the arterial walls, the walls of your blood vessels, guess who comes to patch it up? Cholesterol. So they're not wrong when they say cholesterol is correlated to heart disease or cardiovascular disease, but it is not the cause. It's the sugar that's creating the damage, and the cholesterol is trying to come and patch the damage. The other thing that can obviously create issues with your blood flow is excess calcium in the blood. Excess calcium is kind of a different topic because this is more than likely correlated to parathyroid disease. It could also be correlated to kidney disease. It could be correlated to having abnormal alkaline acidic balance in the blood. So that's kind of a different topic for a different time. But I will say this is that one of the major buffers to blood that's too acidic is calcium. So if you have too much acid buildup in your blood, the cause of that is usually because there's too much sugar in the blood. It raises the acidic pH, and then calcium comes in as a buffer system in order to shift from acidic to more alkaline. So there is definitely a correlation there as well. So we have this blood sugar dysregulation. Either people know that it's happening or they don't know that it's happening. And then this is then going to be correlated to poor circulation in the hands and feet. But then the other thing that people don't know that's going on is that they have blood clotting going on. And sometimes this is actually classified as an autoimmune blood clotting disorder called antiphospholipid syndrome. So, in some of the individuals that I've worked with that have had long-standing blood sugar issues, they have been put on something like a metformin or an Ozempic because they have had elevated glucose levels, they've had elevated hemoglobin A1C, and really all that those drugs do is they manipulate the numbers so you psychologically feel better. Because if you stop the drug, 2 days later, I'll run your blood and your levels are up again. So it's not that anything is fixed. It's just it's literally a psychological facade. You feel better about the idea that your blood sugar is lower, but you still have what's happening is it's just the sugar is still getting into the bloodstream. It's just being manipulated by the drug. So the problem is not fixed, and this is why diabetes unmanaged will progress and meaning unmanaged like you're still eating like shit, drinking, disgusting drinks with high amounts of sugar, drinking alcohol, etc., you're going to continue to the disease state will progress regardless of the drug. And that's why you usually have to change your drug, or you have to go on a higher dose, or you end up being on injectables, etc., etc. So with that being said, is that there is a direct correlation to excess glucose floating around in the bloodstream that starts to create cardiovascular disease and also can raise your risk of developing antiphospholipid syndrome, which is an autoimmune blood clotting disorder. And there are many, many, many people that are over the age of 65 that have antiphospholipid syndrome. And they have all of these different symptoms and they have all of these quote unquote different ailments from kidney dysfunction and gut dysfunction and Alzheimer's and dementia. And it really comes down to the fact that they have this antiphospholipid syndrome and they can't get blood to the brain. They can't get blood to the organs. They can't get blood to the hands, to the feet, to the muscles. It's creating a whole slew of different symptoms that are getting diagnosed as all of these separate diseases, when really it comes down to the fact that the pancreas is jacked up, blood sugar dysregulation, and now we have blood clotting disorders that are associated with the long-standing blood sugar dysregulation. So this is this is kind of twofold. One, if you're a young individual that you're like, oh my gosh, I'm always cold. My hands and feet are so cold. Yes. Oh, my brain fog. Oh, my eyes are always bloodshot. Oh, I have a lot of pressure behind my eyes. I get headaches. I get migraines. You got something going on with your cardiovascular system, and you also probably have a blood sugar crisis that's going undiagnosed because you're not in diabetic range. It takes a series of years, sometimes even decades, before you actually become a diabetic. That doesn't mean that you become a diabetic overnight. It means that you have had a significant amount of time of having blood sugar dysregulation that then started to create a breakdown of your pancreatic function, which then finally gets quote unquote diagnosed as diabetes. And if you've been diagnosed with diabetes and you've been on drugs, remember that's not fixing anything. It's just manipulating the number so that you feel better mentally about the disease. And so the disease state, the snowball going down the mountain is continuing. So you're still going to have the damage to the cardiovascular system because the glucose problem is not resolved. So you're going to continue to have breakdown of your pancreas. You're going to then continue to have issues in your cardiovascular system because of the sugar dysregulation, which then also becomes kidney issues because your blood is filtered by your kidneys. So it's like I think people don't understand that one thing is not isolated. Like everything talks to each other. This is why I call myself an integrative practitioner because you don't have fatty liver and it's just fatty liver. If you have a jacked up liver, that means you have a jacked up gallbladder, you have a jacked up pancreas, you have a jacked up gut, and you have jacked up hormones. If you have cardiovascular issues, you have issues with your muscles, with your organs, and your brain. Like if you have pancreatic issues, you have everything that we talked about today. Nothing is isolated. So that's why I always find it so interesting that people are going to all these separate specialists and everything is thought to be these separate entities, when at the end of the day, there's going to be one to max three foundational problems that are the cause of anywhere between 5 to 10 diagnoses. So when I work with people, I'm like, your blood, you might be looking at your blood saying, oh my gosh, there's so many things. Am I okay? And yes, your blood, technically, I could give you 10 diagnoses based off of what your blood tells me. But because I understand the big picture and I'm leveraging multiple data points, I'm able to know what are the 1, 2, max 3 foundational issues. Are the foundational issues your blood sugar and your pancreas function? Are the foundational issues your liver function? Are the foundational issues your gut? Like what are the foundational issues? Because if we can deal with the foundational issues, then we're going to actually have a cascade effect into resolving the dysfunction in so many other areas of the body, and resolving so many other diagnoses. So that's the thing, is we can't get caught up on these diagnoses. You have to understand what a diagnosis is for. They can't prescribe you something or recommend you something unless you have a diagnosis. So you get a diagnosis, that becomes your new tag, your new identity. And then, oh, okay, so now that you have X, this is how we treat X. Problem, solution, problem, solution. There's no root cause. It's problem, diagnosis, solution. Irritable bowel. What the fuck does irritable bowel mean? You just told why? Why do I have an irritated bowel? That's a diagnosis. Irritable bowel. It's telling you that you have an irritated bowel. But why? Why do you have an irritated bowel? Oh, well, that doesn't matter. It's just people have it. It's genetics. It happens. That's just what happens. But if you have irritable bowel as your diagnosis, we actually have about 20 different drugs to resolve your irritable bowel. your inflammatory bowel. And if those don't work, we have surgeries too. Don't you find that interesting? Because they don't address the root cause. So you'll need those drugs forever. And then a surgery, you might need one, you might need multiple. And then you need pre-care and post-care. If you dealt with the root cause, the person would move on with their lives. They wouldn't be a continued profit engine in the system. So what we all think is normal healthcare, can you even call it healthcare? What is it? It's a it's literally it's such an intricate system set up in such a particular way that benefits who? Big companies. It doesn't benefit you. You know how many people like they'll say, "Oh, this surgery changed my life." I run their labs. Did it change your life? Because according to this, you're still sick as hell, but all your symptoms are your normal. Oh, yeah. Doesn't everybody have bad memory at my age? Oh, yeah, my prostate. Oh, yeah, my gut. Oh, yeah, I don't go to the bathroom. I go to the bathroom every 5 days. I thought that's pretty normal. A lot of people are like that. What? Our level of tolerance when it comes to what we demand out of our health, it's insane. It's insane that young kids, they're depressed and they have anxiety. It's just social media. Is it? Is it just social media? Or is it the fact that they are pumped full of a shit ton of poisons through all the shit they eat? And then we put social media on top of it. So we're not just manipulating them biologically and chemically, but we're also manipulating them psychologically. Ooh, talk about warfare. Psychological biochemical warfare. Holy shit, man. How do you destroy a generation? It's just the things are so obvious, but they keep us busy. They keep us so busy. And I got to do this, and I got to make money, and I got to achieve this level of success. And I got to do this, 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 this. They keep us so fucking busy that we can't even see things for what they are. So at the end of the day, it's up to us to change. It's up to us to demand better. It's up to us to know that, yes, you have to invest in your health. You have to invest with your time, and you do have to invest with your money because the system is all built intricately. It's built through insurance companies. You think people are spending so much money on their insurance plans, and their insurance plans give them care that makes them more sick. And we all feel obligated to have it. Like the amount of fear that people have of what if I have to go to the hospital? What if you have to go to the hospital? There was a video on the internet of a guy, his kid had to go to the hospital and they got a bill. They were in a panic. He didn't give them the insurance or anything else. So he got a bill in the mail and it was like $600. Then he's like, "Oh, I have to give you guys my insurance." He gave them the insurance information and then he got a bill for 1,300. And he's like, "I'm confused." And they're like, "Oh, well, we technically billed because you had insurance, we billed your insurance 3,000. They only covered X, and now you have to pay the balance, which was 1,300." And he's like, "Yeah, but the first bill was 600." And they're like, "Yeah, because you had a discount because you were uninsured." And he's like, "So you mean to tell me I got to pay more because I have insurance that I pay money to?" They're like, "Yep, you're not eligible for the discount anymore because you technically are insured and we verified that you're insured and we have it on file that you're insured. So this is your balance that you have to pay." And I'm just like, this is just the perfect example because this is not uncommon. It's not uncommon at all. But we think we're getting a great deal because, oh, we had to go under the knife and it was $100,000 billed and, we only had to pay 10. Like, what? I understand that there is life and death situations, but it's like, most of us are better off putting our own money into our own account that maybe is some type of investment account, a high yield savings, an HSA, something where our money can maybe make a little bit of money, and that could be our fund for our family's health, and you get to use it how you want. And, God forbid you ever needed anything, surgical or emergency, you're going to get that massive discount as an uninsured person. And, you have the funds to reserve for it. It's such a fear-based system that, it's not my opinion. Like, people are sick. It's not that the system is working. It's just people are so sick and the quality of life is non-existent. And what breaks my heart is the quality of life for these young kids and teenagers is non-existent. There is a huge difference from when I was young to now all these kids, no peanuts in the schools and the food allergies and the this and the autism and the developmental issues and the amount of kids that need aides or assistance in classrooms. Like, I work with plenty of teachers and it's like the wild, wild west in these schools. The amount of kids that have behavioral issues and the diagnoses that these kids have nowadays are just crazy. So I'm going to go off on a tangent. So here we are. The moral of the story is that if you have blood sugar dysregulation, if you've been diagnosed with diabetes, and especially if you have been on a blood sugar regulation medication like metformin or Ozempic, there is a strong, strong, strong probability that you have cardiovascular issues either in the beginning stages or more advanced stages. You need to be checked for blood clots through a D-dimer test. You need to be checked for antiphospholipid syndrome, and you need to deal with the root cause of your pancreatic dysfunction and how to actually improve your cardiovascular function naturally so that you don't have to fear heart attack, heart disease, etc. They're all connected. And unfortunately, one of the primary catalysts to heart disease and cardiovascular disease is the long-standing blood sugar issues that most people have, especially Americans.
We thank you so much for being an avid listener of Integrative You Radio, formerly known as Integrative Wellness Radio. We appreciate all of your support. We love your comments. Please visit us on social media as well as our website to see all of the fun things happening behind the scenes and the new amazing content and courses that is being rolled out on a monthly basis. We hope to see you there.